Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. You know, I'm constantly amazed with Linux. I've been using it for 16 years and every week I'm learning something new. This week has been no exception because I've been creating a little battery status script to show up on my DWM bar. And I thought you might be interested in seeing the process I went through, warts and all. See you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I was going to do a review, and then I thought, no, I've had a busy week and I've been doing all sorts of bits and pieces, and maybe people will be interested in one of the things that I've been sorting out. As you know, I'm in the process of creating a recording space in a cabin I've got at the bottom of the garden. We're very close, by the way. I'm not going to take all the kit I've got here. I'm going to use a mixture of old kit and some extra bits and pieces that I already had lying about. But the main recording machine for the cabin is going to be this. It's a ThinkPad X260, which is the newest ThinkPad I own, actually. The rest are X220s, T430s, etc. And so last week I got it all installed with Endeavour, Endeavour Mate. I installed my build of DWM on it, and everything went well. But it was only during the week when I was firing it up and having a bit of a play that I realised, hang fire, you're using a laptop now, and you've got no way to tell how much battery you've got left, other than obviously doing something on the command line. So what I could really do with is something in the DWM status bar that shows whether the battery is charging or discharging and how much I've got left. So simple, I'm sure, for those gurus out there who can do bash scripting in their heads. Not so much for me, though. I'm just a desktop user who manages to get by. But I thought, right, I'm going to have to create a script. And I had a look around GitLab, GitHub, etc. And I found a few scripts, but they weren't really what I wanted. So in a way, this week has been one of those times where I've created a script from scratch. So I thought I'd take you through the process that I've been through. Hopefully some of you will find it useful. I make mistakes on this video, by the way, and I thought I'd leave the errors in there so you can see the process I went through. As much as anything else, it shows you that anybody can do a bash script. You don't need to be a computer guru or a command line guru to do it. And getting this to work, I'm so proud of myself. It's the first time I've ever used an if statement in bash that I've created myself. Doesn't sound much, but I don't get involved in scripts that much. So before we go over and I show you what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to attach this ThinkPad to my capture card and kind of display that for this video and show you the process. But let me just move to the screen of my workstation, and what I'm talking about is this DWM bar. Now, as you can see on the workstation, I've got the weather, I've got CPU speed, I've got RAM, I've got network up and down, CPU temperature, disk space, and the number of updates, and of course the date and time. But nowhere is there anything to do with the battery because I don't need it here. So I went through a process and I thought I'd take you through that now, and hopefully you enjoy it. So let's get started. Right, so what you should see in front of you now is the screen of my little ThinkPad X260 after a relatively clean install of Endeavour OS. I've actually done this task already, but I thought it would be useful to take you back to how I started. I commenced this whole process by just installing the vanilla version of the Mate desktop. What I ultimately wanted, though, was to use DWM, which is the window manager that I've become quite comfortable with. But let's get to the task. How do I get a battery status icon on the bar of DWM? It's not, of course, a problem with something like Mate because it already has a little power manager there in the system tray. But on DWM, I'm not using a system tray and I don't have access to this. There's also an issue with this X260 that it has two different batteries. It has a small internal battery and it also has an external battery. So what I wanted was to have something on the DWM bar that would show me the percentage that each of those batteries was at. And I also wanted to know the status of the batteries in terms of whether it was charging or discharging. So the first stage was finding out which battery was which and where this little widget in Mate is drawing the information from. And luckily on Mate, that's pretty easy. I can bring up something called power statistics, and it lists the two batteries there, starting with this Sony battery. And I can see straight away that we're only looking at a 23-watt battery there, so it's quite a small battery internally. So the Sony battery there would appear to be the internal battery, which is designated BAT-O, or battery_BAT-O. The other one is an LG B battery, which is designated BAT1, and that's a 70-odd watt. So that's a much bigger capacity battery. In fact, I've got one of these larger batteries in it just to give me a bit more power. Okay, so BAT1 is the external, BAT0 is the internal. Where am I going to get this information from? Right, well, I was already aware that a lot of this information is in the sys directory on the file system. And in fact, let me just open up a file manager here so you can see. In fact, the battery information is in the /sys/class/power_supply directory on this particular laptop. And you can see there that it's got 3 folders, or links to folders, one of which is called AC, one of which is called BAT0, and one of which is called BAT1. And if I open up one of these folders, let me just make this full screen so you can see it. You can see there's a whole range of files in here, essentially. The ones we're interested in are, there's one called capacity, and there should be another one, if I can just see it here, called status. There it is. Couldn't see it for a minute there. Okay, so we know where this information is. And in fact, if I open a terminal now and I take battery 0, for example, which we know is the internal battery, I can just cat that particular file, and it's telling me 94. Does that match up with what this is telling me? The Sony, which is BAT0, is indeed at 94. So that seems to be the right place to get that information, although they're both the same. Let's try it again, but change the battery to BAT1. And that's at 94 as well. Okay, so I've got the basic commands to pull out the battery percentage. I also need to know what the status is in terms of, is it discharging or is it charging? At the moment, this is plugged in. So let's just cat that status file, and it tells me it's charging. Great. So I have 3 commands now. 2 of them pull out the percentage the different batteries in my system are at. The third one tells me whether it's charging or discharging. Right, we're good to go as far as putting a basic script together is concerned now. Right, so we've got our commands, so let's do the script. I'm going to use Genie just to illustrate this. And what I've actually done is I've created a file in my home directory called BAT. Okay, not exactly original, but at least I know what it is. And I've made it executable, you know, chmod plus X. And I've put the shebang at the top, the hash, exclamation mark, and the path to bash, bin bash. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to enter those 3 commands. I'm going to paste them in so that you can see now. Because all a bash script really is a set of commands that you could use on the command line. So I've got the internal cat command or the internal battery command there. I've got the external battery command there to show the capacity. And then I've got the status command here to show the status of whether it's charging or discharging. Now, there isn't a single way to do this. There really isn't. And I'm no expert. What I'm showing you is what's tended to work for me. And what I've tended to do for my other DWM scripts is create variables to start off with. So you can see that I've used these 3 commands and I've attached them all to a variable. So I have internal, external, and status. Okay, all good. As that stands at the moment, though, it does absolutely nothing. What I'm going to need it to do is to echo out the results of those commands. So I'm just going to use the echo command and open a set of speech marks and put in each variable. So let's go internal to start off with. And then we'll go external. And then finally, we'll have the status. And close the oops. If I could spell, that would be even better. So what I want this script to do is to show me the internal percentage, the external percentage, and then the status of whether it's charging or discharging. I'm not overly sure whether I'm using the quotation marks correctly and whether I need to combine each of these variables in speech marks, but I'll be honest with you, it doesn't seem to make much difference. So let's just save that and let's open a command line and see if we can run the script. So ./bat, and let's see what that now produces. Okay, 94, 98 and charging. Let's just check that's what we've got. Yeah, 94, 98 and charging. So 94 is the internal, 98 is the external, and yeah, so we know it's charging. Just out of interest, let me unplug it from the power supply and see if it then says discharging. Clearly, you can see the notification on Mate that it's discharging, but let's run the script again and see if it picks it up. Yes, it does. Okay, all good. Let me plug it back in. Right. Well, that still looks a bit messy, so let me open the script again. And this time, I certainly want the percentage sign after each number. It's not enough just having 94 or 98. Let's put the percentage sign after internal and the percentage sign after external. Let's save that and let's go back and let's run the script again. Okay, the percentage sign is showing. All good. I'd really like a way, though, to pinpoint which is the external battery figure and which is the internal battery figure. So I've played around with this, and what I've been doing is I've just been putting the letter I next to internal and the letter E next to external. As I say, I don't know if this is exactly the correct way to do it, but it seems to be working for me. Let's save that and let's run it again and see if that works. That looks a bit better. So we now have a script that is outputting the status of the internal battery, the external battery, and it's telling me whether the laptop is charging or discharging. Only problem is, that's pretty plain, and I don't really like the way it looks. It's too long. It's going to take up too much space on the bar. So is there anything I can do to kind of pretty this up a little bit? Well, going back to the script, what I've used on all of the other kind of status scripts, or in all the other status scripts that I'm using in DWM, I've been using emojis. To insert these into a script, I've followed exactly the same process as I've done above. So I'm just going to do a paste, and I'm going to copy a little battery icon there. Okay, so nice green battery, all good. How do I actually include that in the script? Well, really simple. I've called it icon E in this case, and I can just add it to the echo script. So icon E. Let's save that and see what happens. Great, I've got an icon. So all good. Trouble is, it's getting even longer now. What I could really do with is having a second icon so that this perhaps shows up if the battery is in the process of discharging, but another icon, a picture of a plug or something, that shows up if I'm plugged into the AC supply. So let's pick up this process. I found another icon in the end. Let me just paste that in, which is a little lightning bolt. There is a plug icon or a plug emoji, but I actually found against the background of my DWM bar, it was too dark, so it wasn't showing up correctly. But nevertheless, the little lightning icon is pretty good. So I can have that if it's plugged into the AC, and I can have the battery icon showing if it's actually discharging. What I'll also need to do is create another echo statement. Let me just copy that and paste that here. Oops. And separate them a little bit. And basically say that if it's charging, I don't want it to display that first icon, which I've called icon E. I want it to display the first icon, the lightning bolt, which is icon I. Of course, on its own, having two separate echo statements isn't going to work. The script's not going to know what to do. And this is where I had to do something, stretch myself a little bit and go out of my comfort zone and think how I would do this. And the way that you do this in any script, but certainly in Bash, is to create an if statement. And I'm going to create an if statement using this status variable, which is the variable that says, is the battery charging or discharging? And the way we do this is pretty simple. We write if, and we then use square brackets. I'm presuming square brackets are the way to go, but hey-ho, we'll kind of proceed this along. We're going to say, basically, if the status variable is equal to charging, okay, which is, of course, one of the outputs that we got, and we're then going to close those square brackets and do a semicolon, then echo icon I. So in other words, if status is saying we're currently plugged into the AC and charging, I want it to show this little lightning bolt. If it's not charging and it's unplugged, I want it to show the battery icon. So in other words, not to display this if it's discharging, but to display the next echo statement. So I just type the word else. And I finish that off by typing in FI. I'm not messing about with line indents at the moment. I'm just trying to get the basics of it working. So let's just summarize what we've got. I've actually got 5 variables there. The capacity of the internal battery, the capacity of the external battery, the status of the laptop, whether it's charging or discharging, and I've got 2 icons that I want to use. I've then created this little if statement that says if status is showing it's charging, echo this first line, which will display the battery the little lightning bolts. If it's not charging, which is in other words means discharging, I want it to display this icon. This means that we can clean up the script a little bit because I no longer need to display the words charging or discharging in the script because that's all going to be done via the icon. So let me just move down and delete status and save that. Right, so is that going to work? Well, let's see. No. Right, so what have I done wrong here? Let's have a look. Well, I'm a big believer in keeping my mistakes in because this is the process that you go through. So I'm doing this in real world time. I'd made a very basic mistake. It took me a while to figure it out. Well, I'd made 2 basic mistakes. I hadn't closed off the quotation marks on the status variable, and I'd forgotten to put the $sign in. So, yeah, pretty amateurish, but hey-ho, I'm not an expert. I've also now spread it out a bit and done some indenting just to make it look a little bit better. What do we get now? If I do battery, you can hopefully see that against a white background. It's not that great, but that's going to look good on my DWM status bar. You've got the little lightning bolt. If I now unplug the power to this laptop, there we go, battery discharging, and I run the script again, I should hopefully get the battery icon now. Fingers crossed. Yes, I do. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's move to the next stage. Right, for those of you who saw my DWM status bar video that I did a month or so ago, you'll know that I have a DWM bar script that calls on a whole range of different scripts for the bar. And essentially what I've done is I renamed that script to DWM BAT. I dropped it in my DWM scripts folder, which is in my path, so I don't have to do the ./, and I've added it in after the hard disk status, and I'm using xset root to stuff it out. So there it is. How does this look in practice? Well, let's open up DWM and have a look. And here we are in DWM, and you can now see that I have the nice little status section there for the battery. You can see that it's discharging at the moment, and if I plug it into AC power, it does a loop, so it should change in a minute, and we should see it change. I think it's every 5 seconds that I've done the loop, and there you go. And nice and clear. You'll see why I didn't use a black plug. It wouldn't have shown up there. But the little lightning bolt looks pretty good as far as I'm concerned. So that's a basic battery script. Let's go and have a chat. Right, so something a little bit different to the norm. And I'm sure many of you are out there saying, what are you doing, Steve? You've done that all wrong. You should have done it this way, that way, or whatever. And I'm sure there's different ways and better ways I could have done it. And please, if there's a simpler way of doing it, in the comments, let me know how you would have done it. Bottom line, though, it's good enough. It works. And that's all I really require. And I enjoyed the process. And using that if statement for the first time that I've ever used it myself, I feel pretty good about that. And just the fact that I've got something that works makes me feel great. So if any of you are looking to do something similar, you can follow my struggling steps to get this to work. And I have kept the errors in, because when you're actually putting this together, you'll often do what you think is great, run it, and then you're getting error messages, and you have to debug it and try and figure out what you've done. So that's it for today, guys. Quite a short video, really, for me. Well, for me. So before I go, please join me on Library as well. Come and say hello on our Facebook group. Before we go, I would just like to say a big thanks to my Patreons, who have really helped me out getting the new kit and bits and pieces that I've been putting together over the last couple of weeks. We've got Corbinian Schilderman, Robert Boudreau, Gary Moore, Aristotelis Papagiorgio, Stormpick, Stephen Cross, Mike Long, David Bird, Entropy UK, Richard Wade, Ty Gare, Philip Espy, Forest Rhodes, Scott Russell, and a big welcome and thanks very much to our newest member, Patrick Dano. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week, hopefully from the cabin.